So I'm waiting. I'm just waiting to have to deal with that now. Shut this door down. Sell sponsorships. Absolutely. Like American Idol.
I like the lights out in the building.
Spring.
It's very inviting. Welcome. Well, I know we're taping, but before did I set the alarm on you the other night? Last night, our last meeting? We'll talk about it later. It's possible.
There was something
What?
beeping.
And the cops
No,
coming.
but I think he was still in the
No,
building.
it wasn't. It was just beeping.
That's the
I don't
point.
know.
Okay.
But this is the cleaning.
Okay.
Blame it on the cleaning company.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we're going to start. Okay, it is it's about 5 minutes past 7. It's January 22nd, so we'll open the meeting of the Finance Committee. We have a quorum here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we're good. We do expect Barbara Christopher to be on her way, and Stephanie is not coming, and I'm not sure about Sean Tyler, so just checking my text, got nothing. Okay, so tonight we have a light agenda, if you will. We talked briefly at our last meeting about the upcoming 2015 budget process. So maybe we'll touch a little bit on that too. But for tonight, we have the town manager, Rick LaFond, here. Hello, Rick. Welcome. And so there are definitely two things that we want to take up this evening. The first one is every year, I'm going to talk about snow and ice. We have a budget for snow and ice removal. What do we have in there? 100?
100,000.
100,000?
Combined, yeah, for contracting and certain personal services.
For snow and ice. Snow and ice, of course, being that it's the kind of thing you really don't know. I mean, we certainly could probably do a better job of estimating how much we spend given the last 5 years or so, but you just never know. So, so your budgeting on snow and ice is the kind of thing where, based upon the Massachusetts state laws, I believe, a municipality can put money in a budget for it, but they have the ability, if the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, I believe, approves, to authorize deficit spending. In other words, spending beyond the budget. It's one of the few things in the municipal budget that you can do that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is the only thing.
It's the only thing.
That you can do that for, without authorization from the Department of Revenue.
Cool. So we tend to put, we have $100,000 in the budget there, and the issue is that if we were to put a significant amount more in that budget, say we were able to put $1 million in that budget, just say, if you didn't spend it all, you can't move it out at the end of the season unless town meeting. I think town meeting has to allow you to do it.
But the following year, you would still have to appropriate the amount that you appropriated.
The same amount.
before, so.
So that's the issue, is that you try to keep it at a reasonable rate, but not something that you would at some point want to pull back on. You don't want to over budget it for it. So anyway, as a real basic concept, that's pretty much what we're doing here. So at this time, Rick, can I ask you, do you have currently an estimate of what highway is at this point? Or?
Well, going into this storm event, the department was approximately $60,000 over the $100,000 budget. So obviously, it's too early to know exactly what this storm is going to consist of. But that was, we would need the approval, obviously, with or without the storm. But that's what we were heading into prior to this. One of the things that should be mentioned too, and I know the Finance Committee knows this, but that out of that snow and ice budget also comes materials, salt, sand, other materials, and a lot of times that can be very, very expensive. You know, people, well, these only snowed twice, but why's the budget gone? Well, because it snowed once and then it melted and froze for a week straight, and you've got to treat the roads, and that can add up very quickly too. So that also comes out of that budget.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's true, and that's something that you have to buy ahead of time to have on hand, and then depending on the snow events, whether you have to replenish and all that jazz. So I also wanted to mention that the Board of Selectmen will be also reviewing this, this vote on Monday. I think their meeting is Monday, the 27th. Whether we take up the vote to approve deficit spending on this before they do, or they do before we do, it's gone either way in my past experience here. But just to be on the safe side, I did call the chairman of the Board of Selectmen this evening to tell him that we were going to take up this vote, and if he had any problem with it, if he wanted to sort of handle it ahead of time, we would defer this vote. He said he didn't have any concern with us taking it up before they did, because they're going to talk about it on Monday. So, having said that, we can, and I would entertain a motion to approve deficit spending on the snow and ice.
I'll make a motion to approve the deficit spending on snow and ice.
I'll second.
You'll second it? Discussion?
Didn't we, maybe we only talked about increasing that at the last budget? I thought we did.
There was a lot of discussion about increasing it last year. As a matter of fact, the joint meeting that we had with the Board of Selectmen, one or two of the Board of Selectmen were very adamant about wanting to increase it. Again, I don't believe we did. I actually just turned in my last year's budget. We did. Well, I think it used to be 80,000, I can tell you that. Maybe 2 years ago, it was consistently at 80,000. We bumped it up to 100. We had quite a bit of discussion about bumping it up even further. But I think when we got to the point where, if you'll recall, in order to even balance the budget, we decided to take money out of stabilization.
Yeah.
That kind of put us to a point where, like, well, I think we need to stay at 100,000. As much as some of us would have liked to have put more, maybe 120, 150. When we got to the point where we were taking money out of stabilization, as I recall, the decision was to keep it as is. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, sorry I'm late. And I know I just got here, but I just wanted to ask, at some point, this might not be the night to have this discussion, maybe when we're going over this, but the budget with this department, we had discussed at one point also having the thoughts of having like a stabilization account specifically for the snow and ice, because we every year end up deficit spending, which we're allowed to do, but then we do have to come up with that money at the end, and we tend to be scrambling.
Of course, you have to fund the stabilization account.
Right.
Money too, so.
Right.
I think, one of those long-term goals. Over the last 5 years, the town has spent a little over $400,000 per year on average, so.
Right.
Even if, so you're just shifting 300,000 roughly into the next fiscal year continuously, so you're spending the same amount, you just, the goal would be to start shifting things into the appropriate fiscal year, without, any more financial Armageddon than is the case every year anyway, so it's a nice goal. Hopefully we can take, some more steps towards that. But like I said, even if it's, 50,000 a year for the next few years,
I mean, increase the...
It's easier said than done, obviously. When it comes down to...
Because that usually ends up being what gets hit first, because it is what we can deficit spend. It's the one line item we can deficit spend, so when we don't have money or we're needing money, that tends to get hit first.
I just want to pursue the idea of a stabilization account specifically for that. Is that what you're suggesting?
Like something, how...
Because then would we need a town, like right now, stabilization, we have to get the town to vote to put money into it and the town to take money out of it. So it would be the same rules?
Maybe, I don't know that then maybe a stabilization might not be, but where it can only be used for that purpose. It's only an account to be used, not the broader term of, not the broader term, the very specific, this account is for. You know how...
Because there's no money that comes in, so it wouldn't be, an enterprise account maybe or something.
No, it would have to be some sort of stabilization account. There's no other savings accounts per se.
That you can
other
specific.
than that,
So. I know that we've had a goal of our free cash, X amount going into stabilization, a certain percentage going into stabilization, a certain percentage going into our capital plan. I don't know if that's something that we could have a percentage go into. Just, it is something that we, every year, are aware of that we, and I don't know what the legal implications are of that either, because I know when you increase the, could that be looked at as a fancy way of going around increasing your snow budget so that you can't be, once you increase it, you can't decrease it?
Well, you can, but you can't overexpend thereafter.
Right.
So
Does that mean you're kind of tied into, once you, when you increase it, you can't then,
Right.
the next year say, oh, we're going to decrease it?
I think it's gonna be many, many years before we get to the point where we're in danger of budgeting enough so that we're not overexpending.
Right.
I don't see, unless the economy, it's not out of the question, the economy could improve, and in the next couple of years, state aid could start to go through the roof. I mean,
Anything can happen.
there was a shining moment in around 1994 and 5, I think, when things were good for about 18 months. It's possible, but I just wouldn't count on it. So.
Just,
But it's a valid point, though, as to, how to try to address the issue and different ways to approach it. One of the critical piece in my mind is, if you know you've been spending historically $400,000, you're probably not gonna spend, say, less than $250. I mean, that's kind of, by the time you fill the zone, sheds and everything else, you're probably just about there, so. So I think, over the next few years, if we can try and make a dent in the budget amount, at least.
are you suggesting increasing it by 50,000 each year over the next few years? Or trying to anyways?
Yeah, I didn't,
as a goal.
That was a hypothetical, I
Right.
don't think, of course, not to get off topic, but the governor just released his budget today, as some of you may have.
I just wrote that down.
And considering the virtually negligible increase in local aid that he's proposing in his budget, it doesn't bode well for the ability to address any of these other issues aggressively anyway. So, but not that that's the end all and be all, but certainly it's not an encouraging start.
But it's definitely something that was on our radar last year, and it's on our radar continually, too. So, further discussion, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, which is to authorize deficit spending on snow and ice, all those in favor? Okay, good. All right. Thank you, guys. That was one of the things we wanted to talk about. The next thing we wanted to talk about was a funding request transfer for Veterans Aid. Last time we met, I received, let me see if I can find it. I received a transfer request. Gosh, I hope I have it here. Oops. The situation right now is that the Veterans Aid expenditure for the ongoing Veterans Aid, I guess it's expenditure, has exceeded the existing budget. You will recall, just for a little bit of background, the budget the budget the budget amount for last year for Veterans Aid was $84,000, I think, and $70. The actual that was spent for the 2013 year was $57,700. I got these numbers earlier today from the town accountant. So the budget for this year was $70,000. Remember, it was budgeted for 84 last year, but we put it down to 70 given what had been expended. The remainder of some of the funds were put into our reserve account, with the idea being, because we didn't really know what the expenditure would be for Veterans Aid, we put that in there so that we could pull some out should they need it, because we have a new Veterans Aid, we have an interim Veterans agent. There was a lot of changes going on between last year and this year. So the $70,000 is what was budgeted for the 2014 fiscal year. It's not our last meeting, but one of the meetings before the end of the year, I think it was back in November, maybe October, we had a request to transfer $18,000 from our reserve account into Veterans Aid, and we approved that. We had another request, which unfortunately I can't seem to find it right here.
It was, I think, $64,000. It was intended to get
Through the year.
Bob Pratt's projection getting through the fiscal year,
Right.
which obviously exceeds the amount that's in the reserve fund.
Thank you, yes. So I'd ask, so right now, we have 27,000, it might be unchanged, but anyway, we have about $27,000 in our reserve account right now. So, what I went through and talked to the accountant about is that right now, that veterans aid and only veterans aid, it's not veteran salaries or anything, veterans aid needed to carry them through the end of March is $19,000. That's for no other expenses, it's what we call ordinary benefits.
Right, and that's a projection.
That's a projection, right.
You don't know exactly what that will be.
That's true, because this is forecasting through the end of March. Here we are, kind of the middle of January. So, though the request was for 64,000, and we have 27,000 in our budget right now, the thought process is, would you guys be willing to authorize 19,000 to carry them through March? And why March is that I think there is also some discussion about potentially going, when we go to town meeting.
Yes.
Do you want to speak to that, Ray?
Yeah, well, a couple of points I'd like to.
Thank you, 'cause
One
correct-
is that getting us into April is the key, so at a special town meeting in April, we can transfer funds from another source.
Should they exist?
To be identified, so that the reserve fund doesn't have to, well, the reserve fund can't spend more than you have. So hopefully in April, we can put some additional funds either into the line item or into the reserve fund. So that's why getting through March is the critical piece. The other point that I wanted to make, and I don't know if you had this discussion, Maureen, with the town accountant, is that right now, the current obligations that need to be met through the end of this month is $33,214.88.
I'm sorry, it's how much?
$3,214.88.
Thank you.
So, Bob's not here to speak to it, but my immediate goal would be to seek a reserve fund transfer to pay the current obligations, and especially considering you're gonna be going into meeting mode anyway in February.
True.
There's
Where
no
we're meeting
reason-
all the time.
There's no reason that we can't come back and, with further requests, once we know exactly what those are, rather than just estimating through April.
Thank you, good point, good point. I didn't write that number down, so I don't think they had that conversation, but that's a very valid point. We're gonna be, because we're in budget mode, we're gonna be meeting at least probably once a week between February and March, so we could take this up again and piecemeal it out, if you will.
Right.
Especially where it's a modest reserve fund at the moment, and who else you might have to help live in a special town meeting is still to be determined too, so
That's true.
I would just,
Oh, I found it.
it makes all of our lives easier in some way for you to just do the whole nut, but I think that just leaves, in my opinion, a very, very modest amount in the reserve fund.
What that would happen, with the 27 that we have now and change, and the 19 that I was mentioning brought us through the end of March, would leave us with only 8,300 in our reserve account. Our reserve account normally has 20,000 in it. There are years that we don't spend it, but, so that would take us down to 8,300. So, Barbara, you had a question?
I just was wondering, what's causing us to be at, in January, already to be 3,214 under budget in that area? Is there an influx of veterans coming back requiring services? Do we just lowball the number of people that we thought would be in need, or?
My understanding is the clientele has risen from, I think, an average 7 last year to about 14 this year. That was the beneficiaries, eligible beneficiaries who are receiving benefits in some fashion under the law right now. So I don't know if the personal circumstances of these individuals, nor am I supposed to. I think if Bob were here, he could at least characterize that a little bit, but So I'm a little hesitant to give you bad information.
Oh, no, I'm just,
From a pure
Yeah.
numbers perspective, that's also what I had down.
Yeah.
Last year, veterans taking benefits was somewhere between 5 and 7 on average. On average this year, it's more like between 12 and 14-ish, like that. So there's additional folks getting what we call ordinary benefits, and then there was, I think, some other benefits
Some
that when
one-time.
Bob was here, some one-time expenditures. The 19,000 or the 3,000 that you're talking about is just, my understanding is just for ordinary benefits, no additional other expenses.
An additional other would be, they're still reimbursable, but ordinary benefits aside, one-time benefits could be, and I think you see it, he's explained it, if there's a medical, or if a veteran is eligible for a housing benefit, where, reimbursable may be, if the veteran's agent has to assist with housing, when you're paying a
Rent.
first, last, deposit, that kind of thing. It's all, again, reimbursable under the law, but that's not an ordinary benefit, so to speak. That's a one-time cost. And so the 19,000 is only to address ordinary benefits. And that's why I think it's you should be cautious, because we really don't know what it's going to cost to get through February, never mind March yet. So I hesitate, because I know that it just creates additional deliberations on your part, and that's time and your collective energy, but getting through January would be, I think, the primary goal, and we'll all be seeing each other multiple times in February, so we can deal at that time with additional requests.
Yes.
Doesn't funding just to get through January just put us back? I understand we're going to meet a lot, but it starts him off in February in a deficit again, or not being able to meet his obligations again. Wouldn't it be prudent to at least fund him through February?
then we're still taking a shot in the dark at the number, though.
It's a valid point.
But we're like 8 days away from February.
We're 7 days away from meeting again.
No, I mean, it's a valid point. The problem is that you'd just be picking a number for February.
Right.
I mean, you could certainly, we could average it out. So, your preference.
And we also know nothing's going to change on the projection. More than likely, it's not going to come down for the March one. It just seems we're just kicking the can, and
I think maybe we might want to talk with the veterans agent, is what I'm
Right.
thinking.
And again,
know.
up until this, he was coming in, and, I mean, I understand things happen, so I couldn't speak for him. I don't know if anyone, so if we're talking, let's see, what I write that down. We're talking 3,200 to get us through January, which is the month we're in. He was talking about 19 grand to get him through March. That would include January, February, March. That's 19. We could divide it by 3. Whatever the right thing to do is. Obviously, we need to make. We don't need. We are incumbent upon making the funds available to cover those benefits which we have to pay. And I know we're going to be here every day too, so every week anyway. So I'm good either way. If we want to cover, we definitely want to cover January. If we want to cover January and February and take a stab in the dark, whatever you guys think is the right thing. Yes, please, Rick.
I'd be in favor of voting the 3,000 because we have other departments out there right now that we don't know if they're in trouble or not. And to give all this money to one time just because it might happen, I think we should stick to the $3,000 in case somebody else out there needs some money. And then we can address it like Rick said in the fall meeting.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
I understand what you're saying, Chad. We are only that very short, it does only carry for such a short period of time. But I would be more comfortable with, could we get the veterans agent to come next week? Are we
Sure.
are we planning to meet next week anyways? Could we?
Probably. That's our next conversation.
I will speak to him tomorrow.
So
Okay.
I'd just feel more comfortable, getting the information from him and maybe in that week's time, he will have the time to kind of nail down because if you divide 19,000 by 3, you don't get 3,000.
Sure, and the numbers,
So,
the last
it
time
just-
it was in are different also.
Right, so I just feel like it's kind of, we're definitely,
And I think what we're talking about is funding checks that go out, and the checks only go out once a month. Is that a correct
Yes,
statement?
Right.
So whether, if, as long as we cover January now, it covers the January checks that go out, and then we have until the end of February to cover the February checks. So putting more in between now,
If you
I
weren't,
could
if
be
you
wrong.
were in if you weren't going into a, you're
Consistently meeting
dreading
mode?
it, let's see, a consistent meeting mode.
Dreading it.
It'd be a different issue perhaps. I'm sorry. For
Well-
most people, they don't, this isn't a lot of fun.
It's the best time of the year.
I just wanted to get some clarification on the reimbursement, reimbursable funds. We are reimbursed 75% of what we,
Of the benefit.
Of the town's expenditure, you're 75% of eligible benefits, so. And
Right.
to date, there's been no issue with the benefits being
Deemed
bestowed, being reimbursable, so that's a good thing.
Okay.
But the
And-
problem is, as that comes on next year's cherry sheet.
Right.
Actually, the following year. So it's really a cash flow issue, and we did look into the concept of a revolving fund, because you do have money going in, and then there's no provisions in general laws for that.
for revolving account for the
There's
veterans.
no
Because it's
provisions to
cherry-
allow it?
Because it's cherry sheet revenue,
Mhm.
and there's not a specific
Line
fee
item.
or that's going into it on a regular basis. Revolving funds are really designed for user fees in, benefits out, as opposed to cherry sheet. Cherry sheet
One-time
receipts
annual.
are not intended to be used for revolving funds, so. I mean, I know we're not the only town that has to deal with this particular problem, but to date, there isn't a viable solution to the cash flow problem,
Got it.
other than larger appropriations.
More discussion? Anyone? No? Okay, so, so the funding, whatever this is called, the reserve fund transfer request is currently here at 64,000. I know we're not gonna do that because we don't even have that. So, does anyone want to present a motion and a number? Barbara?
I'll make a motion for a reserve fund transfer of $3,214.88 to cover the current obligations through the end of January.
Was that a
Second.
second?
Of the veterans.
Okay, further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Okay, that's good. All right, so I'll tell Bob, or you can tell Bob, or
I'll
whatever.
tell them in the morning.
Okay, so I will complete this paperwork and sign it. Okay, awesome, thank you. So that's the second thing that we were gonna do today.
Lori, why don't you sign it and leave it with me, and I'll make sure it gets there tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. I will do that. Thank you. And maybe you can grab a copy for me too. Okay, very good. Rick, while we have you here, why don't we touch base on just whatever you want to tell us what we have here, and then we can let you go.
Sure, I know that's an awfully big binder for, it seems like a very thin document right now, but a couple things to be aware of. Number one, it's organized in the regular chart of accounts, not alphabetically with tabs, so
Mhm.
these,
It's in order the way the budget goes. Yeah. Oh, there you go, Barbara.
Oh, thank you.
Because we do work by general account numbers.
so considering all the planning that went into this, the fact that the whole punch is right through the page numbers.
No, I can see it.
So, but.
Best laid plans.
So again, it's organized the way, the way your municipal budget's organized.
Okay.
It does not contain a school budget. The school committee is not going to certify that yet, and that's why, as I believe I emailed Maureen, that I can't give you a summary document that's of any value. So when we have a summary document, once there's a school proposal, we'll provide that to you, and you can add it to your binders at that time. For me to just plug a fictitious number would be really not.
No, I didn't. I agree with you
We
there.
have to kill more trees after that, so.
Doesn't
so-
make any sense.
And, I assume that most of you probably keep all of your budget information in the one binder, so it'll fill up. It'll fill up. Enjoy the skinny binder days. 'Cause- So that's what you're looking at right now, and as soon as we have the school budget, we'll forward that to you too, and with a summary document.
Do you know when the school department, when the school committee is planning to meet to present that, or? I'm sorry.
It's next week.
Okay.
I don't know what night. I don't know what
I
night.
think they usually meet on Tuesdays, or
Yeah.
Tuesdays, okay.
And the reason why it's a little bit longer, I know that the school superintendent and the assistant superintendent were trying to narrow things down a little bit more, a little earlier in the process before they even produced
A proposal.
phase one document, so.
Well, we will certainly want to invite them into such a
Oh, sure.
large amount of, yeah. All right, so this is what we have, and our plan is to meet with department heads over the next few weeks, over the next 2 months with you. So
Yes.
we're gonna put together some sort of schedule that works for them. We said Tuesdays and Wednesdays work best for us.
And Maureen did forward to us this week, last week, it's all.
I think it was Friday, maybe.
Okay, Friday.
Last year.
The copy of last year's hearing schedules, so that
Oh, yeah.
go about more or less duplicating that for you, so Dory is in the process of trying to line that up with the departments.
Cool.
So in a similar fashion, unless you had some, I mean, just looking at it last year intuitively, I mean, clearly departments had more time, so, I mean, it just makes
Yeah.
sense. So we're gonna, unless you tell me otherwise, presume to do more or less duplicate what you did last year.
Yeah, like it would not be unusual for us to have like police and then like network IT on the same night,
Yeah.
because police would take up much of the time and then a little bit less. Highway, park and rec, together with water. So you don't want to come, and I will say that last year we did school department was, I think, one night maybe by themselves, and then we had South Shore VOTEC possibly in, I don't know if we had them one night, or we could put them together with someone else too, but either way. So Dory will work on the schedule,
Yes.
and we'll coordinate, and then we'll make
Because there's
invitations.
nothing worse than scheduling.
Yeah, no kidding, there you go.
Pass the buck on that.
Yeah.
All right, so we have these, which we can, read at our leisure at this point. Again, understanding that they're drafts, they're proposals, et cetera. We'll have a schedule forthcoming for this year, and I got myself a new calendar, 2014. All set, because I'm still a paper girl, all about the paper. I know, he'll laugh at me. All right, anything else you want to tell us about that, Rick? Or that-
No, nothing else about that. The only thing else I would add at this moment is what I alluded to earlier, is that the governor's budget, did release his budget. As you know, the MMA conference is this weekend, and
Yeah.
usually that's where he makes some public statements as to his rationale for doing so. But it's not all that encouraging. It's a very minimal increase, and most of, a significant part of that increase is reimbursables for veterans benefits, so they're not actual, yes, it's money, but it's not chapter 70, it's not, unrestricted local government aid. So it's essentially more or less a flat,
Same.
yeah, which would mean at this point and going into the next fiscal year, the cities and towns would be, again, this is according to the Mass Municipal analysis, more dependent upon the local tax levy than at any other time since Prop 2.5 to fund, local government services. So it's a little bit disappointing, but it's early in the process.
Yeah. We don't see any, I know it can change, any drops. Because we're kind of talking net, we haven't seen our own allocation of anything. I know it's not a big increase or it's flat, but we don't see any particular decreases in anything, chapter 70.
Nothing that's particular to, some of the decreases don't really hit Abington.
Okay.
Like pilot money doesn't really hurt us. There's some, communities that have huge tracts of state land, whether they have prisons or state forests, but, so, not decreases, but obviously to the extent that there's virtually no increase, in keeping up with inflation.
Which is kind of like a decrease when we're not
Yeah, well-
keeping up with inflation.
Well, staying the same is basically a decrease because
Right.
your expenses always go up, so. All right, then, so we'll keep an eye on that. I think the governor is talking tonight anyway. I think his state of the state is tonight. It was supposed to be last night, but it got
Tonight or
bounced, I
this
think,
week?
till tonight possibly. Right. All right, so we'll see what happens there. Okay, and we've got this. The only other thing I will mention too, which is on here, is that
Thankfully, it's his last address.
Chad and I went to South Shore Votech, had an open meeting on January 15th, where they gave a copy of their proposed budget for fiscal year 2015. I don't know if anything is changing yet, but this is where what happens is kind of like how our school department does it. They come up with a proposed budget, and then their school committee votes, on that proposed budget. And that's what happened the other night. So I do have a copy of it. What is not in here, they did not have our different towns' allocations. So this is just the total budget, which I can give you. It's a 4.67% increase in total from last year to this year.
Can you say that again, Maureen?
4.67% increase.
you.
The proposed budget from last year to this year. Again, that, you never know until we get our allocations to determine how, our allocation could go down, it could go up, it could remain flat. It's all dependent upon number of children, number of Abington students, I think, or something like that. And some other kind of calculation, some bizarre calculation.
And the 90s ed reform calculation, how that impacts assessments.
True, that's right, it's not
I
flat.
think there's one person in Tibet who understands that.
He came in one day. He came into us a couple years ago, the one guy in the world that knows how that allocation works. Not just for, not just for district schools, but just the whole allocation from school and how much each town has to carry.
How the whole
towards
formula
the whole
works.
formula thing. But anyway, so I have a copy of this. It is an official copy, but we haven't received our official copy because we get our official copy when we get our split of the budget, along with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other towns. So I do have it if anybody wants to look at it. And I don't know if it's on their website or not, but Chad and I do have a copy of it. So that's, if you want to see it, here, I'll see. We have a copy. All right, let's see what else is on our agenda. That anyone who wants to see this can see it. That's the South Shore Votech thing. I think that covers the things that we were going to talk about. We did that with that. We did that. So I think that covers everything. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up? No? Nope. Rick, anything that you want to bring up? No. No, thank you. Okay, so since that's the situation, I really don't have anything else. So I'm trying to think if there's anything that we need to talk about from a public service announcement type of thing. I can't think of anything.
Minutes from last meeting.
Very good. See, there was something. We have some minutes from last week. Deb, which ones I read about? January 8th. Okay. Anyone want a motion to approve the minutes of January 8th?
I was not.
Barbara was not here and Sean was not here, so I need someone else. Rick?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 8th.
Anyone? Second, okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, so having done our business, the takeaway should be, I think our next meeting, are we meeting next Wednesday is the
29th.
29th. Do you think we need to meet? Are we gonna have anything, Rick, anything new to talk about by next Wednesday? We don't.
Not if I can help it.
All right, well, having
Well, what
said.
about the veterans agent? Is that something we want to take up next week? I mean,
Well, we've got them, well.
We have till the end of
We have
February,
them funded through there, so I would say let's plan on February 5th that's the Wednesday. Unless between now, you and I determine that we're gonna have a meeting with somebody on February 4th. 4th is the Tuesday, 5th is the Wednesday, so we'll plan on the 5th. Anyone know when school vacation is?
I'm assuming it's the 17th.
That's President's Day, it may likely be.
Usually it's the week.
Yeah. So we'll plan on the 5th unless Rick and I get together and find out that we need to have a meeting with somebody earlier than that. If we can get a department head in here, that would be fine too. So that does give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 Tuesdays and Wednesdays in February, and then we get into March too. So having said that, all that, what that means is that we will plan to have our meeting on February 5th at 7 o'clock unless something changes. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? Nope. Yes, nope.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn over here?
Second.
Second, all those in favor? All right, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Rick. I'll shut this off.
I did get your, thing. I know that I didn't get a chance to